Hello, everyone, and welcome to our another exciting webinar of CDAP Knowledge Series 2026. The title of this webinar is Empowering Smallholders, Seed System Innovation for Rural Growth. So I truly appreciate you for taking this time to join with us with our distinguished speaker, Dr. Swati Nayak. She is a scientist in South Asia Lead, Seed System and Product Management, Rice Breeding Innovation Department, CGIAR, International Rice Research Institute, IRI. And now I am requesting our Honorable Director General of SIDAP, Dr. P. Chandrasekhara sir, to commencing this webinar and introducing the speaker. Sir, over to you, sir.
Thank you, Hiren. Good morning to all of you. On behalf of SIDAP family, I would like to extend a warm welcome to all the participants of this webinar. And thank you, Dr. Swati Nayak, for accepting the SIDAP invitation and giving your valuable time and sharing your experience. It is for the information of all the participants. When 2023 Norman Borlaug Field Award was announced, it brought, pride and a smile on the face of many extension professionals. It was recognition to rural development, a recognition to agriculture and especially agricultural extension professionals. So, congratulations again, Dr. Swati Nayak, for bagging 2023 World Food Prize Foundation Norman Borlaug Award. And it is a great recognition to your dedicated work and contribution for strengthening seed systems across the globe. It is for the benefit of all the participants. I would like to, briefly introduce Dr. Swati Nayak. It is my privilege. Dr. Swati Nayak is, of course, as I shared with you, is a 2023 Norman Borlaug Field Award winner. It is a great recognition to her dedicated work. She is a graduate in agriculture, master's in rural development, and did her doctorate in agricultural extension management. And she is working as South Asia lead in seed systems and product management, lead in IRI, International Rice Research Institute. Her contribution is well recognized among professionals for making the seed system more inclusive and sustainable, but also enterprising. And her approach for benefiting the producers is well appreciated, but also she took care of all the stakeholders in value chain. That is how sustainable systems are made. Thank you, Dr. Swati Nayak, for your valuable time. And regarding CDAP Knowledge Series, webinars, this is a popular webinar series among rural development professionals. Um, Basically, the extension functionaries in rural development and in agriculture, they work at village level. And even though a lot of innovations are taking place across the globe, and richly experienced professionals are working in different parts of the globe, these two people are not connected. The very purpose of this webinar is to connect the globally recognized good practices and the global experts with the last mile extension functionaries in rural development. Thank you very much. Over to Dr. Swati.
Thank you very much, Chandrasekharji, Honorable DG CDAP and the entire CDAP team, and all the esteemed guests who have joined today, all the participants of the webinar. It's a privilege for me to part of this webinar series and also to become one of the member of the among many empaneled experts across the world who get united only around a vision of rural development and creating a more inclusive world for everyone. Having said that, my major research work has been for last many years on seed system. When somebody asks me about significance of scientific innovations, I always tell that science is not only about discovery, it is also about delivery. So how our innovations are reaching to the end users, to our smallholder farmers, and how it is creating economic opportunities for them to leverage and to enhance their living standards, provide resilience against different vulnerabilities, and provide equitable access to different inputs, markets, and services. So seed system is that domain of agriculture science which actually is not a very linear subject, but it combines various stakeholders and multidisciplinary researchers as well as delivery agents together to make sure that various improved genotypes or the varieties, or as well as many conjured premium indigenous land races and varieties, those are getting accessible. The quality seed is getting accessible to the farmers, and also how farmers are able to work across the value chain, throughout the value chain. Having said that, I have a presentation which I would like to share. So briefly, where I work with International Rice Research Institute currently, and I started my journey as a rural development expert or professional, working with many smallest of smallholder farmers, and that included many indigenous, communities, many the most particularly vulnerable communities across different hinterlands, and especially around how we create opportunities, and developing, rural enterprise opportunity, livelihood opportunities, and other opportunities for those stakeholders as well. While I work with ERI, it is an organization which has 1,000+ staff across the globe with 17 countries where direct presence, and also with various other countries having researchers, support staffs distributed across 40+ nationalities, showing the diversity of the professionals who are part of this entire big team. And we are part of CGIR, which is a consultative group for international agriculture research. But when we talk about it, we talk about food system research, and where we talk about how, as I expressed, that we are not only talking about upstream science and research, but we are also talking about social science. We are also talking about how those scientific innovations, those are developed in the laboratories or on station of various institutions, are reaching to the farmers. So taking the technology or innovation to the farmer is also remain one of the major vision under our scientific innovation umbrella. When we talk about seed system innovations, it's about better varieties, but it's also about better quality seeds. We know seed is the genetic repository which can contribute to crop productivity, and it has standalone as a technology. If we use quality seed, it has 15% yield potential increase for any kinds of crops that we might use. Having said that, not always quality seeds are available for the farmers. Even if availability of the supply chain is established, the equitable access is not guaranteed everywhere. At the same time, we also see challenges around timely access. The agriculture, which is the major livelihood base for rural community, that is very seasonal. And we all know the smallholders, remain in the belts which are particularly rain-fed conditions, which are climatically vulnerable, ecosystems. Under those situations, when a critical input, which is probably the most low-cost innovation for a smallholder farmers compared to any high-end mechanization or optimal agronomic practices and etc. So the seed, which is a basic entitlement which every farmer should have, if that doesn't get accessible in the right time, and in form of a right variety, so it has it immediately increases the risk for the smallholder farmer. So having said that, there may be many varieties that gets released through different countries' national release systems, but not that every varieties are suitable for farmers' needs or the market needs. Now, what farmer would grow will not only depend upon what he wants to eat or store, but what also market wants from them. So if the market forces are driven by different value chain actors like the millers, exporters, and etc., and a farmer focuses only a variety which probably he or his family wants to eat, then that subsistence farming would probably not give that economic return to the farmers. So in this context, it is very important the farmer goes for careful varietal choice selection that not only caters to the food security of the household where he or she remains, but also providing enough economic opportunities through the harvest, through the produce, or any kinds of value-added activities or products that emerges from that farming practices. Having said that, it is important that we have a very methodologically driven, scientific, as well as inclusive standardized operations and procedures for varietal evolutions. Lot of breeders, geneticists, they develop a lot of improved varieties. At the same time, several premium quality traditional varieties of different crops are available, but which one is the best for the farmers of the locality where we are targeting, that needs to be driven by evidence and data. So having that methodological nuances correct is very important for us while we recommend as either as extension professionals or different kinds of advisories being provided. We need to make sure our varietal advisories or seed advisories are backed by enough robust data, and that's why varietal evaluation is one of the major component for us. While we do follow different measuring criteria and scientific methods, we also want to make sure these are participatory. So often these evaluation methods are very different from what national testing systems does on station. Our evaluations are driven mostly by farmers under farmer management condition, under contextual learning environment. Sometimes it also involves unique models like varietal cafeteria, which I will be talking about it, and participatory varietal evaluation, rankings, and the decision around what a community wants to grow and see a value in that. At the same time, modeling different innovations for making sure that there is enough varietal supply as well as adoption triggers. So this could be innovations around demand side, that could be innovations around the supply side, and we make sure that if a very good variety has been released and available, that information, that awareness, that access to seed, the availability in the right time, as well as the affordability is being made sure or made certain for the farmers to make sure that they are adopting it in a sustained manner. At the same time, we know that seed system work across different dynamics. One is our formal seed system, which probably involves certified quality assured seeds, but at the same time, huge percentage. If I talk about rice, I think 40 to 50% minimum, area of rice is currently managed by the farmer managed or informal seed networks. So how we ensure that, right varieties, quality seeds are getting circulated through these systems as well, and how we make sure that, what farmers are growing, those are of high quality. At the same time, when we create different enterprise opportunities or opportunity to make the farmers or the seed producers self-sustaining, capacity development is one of the area where it is important that we invest into, which is around quality seed production, but not limited to only technicalities of quality seed production, but also going beyond the science of it to the regulatory aspects of it to make sure that when if they can visualize it as more of like an enterprise and not just as an input provisioning area. So in this context, seed enterprise development, business development trainings around those things are also part of the comprehensive capacity development initiative. Seed is bound by several nuanced regulatory, affairs and policies. And can we do some innovations that can make sure that, we are making our seed system more reliable, but at the same time accessible to the farmers. I can give some of the examples of Seeds Without Borders. So it is one of the beautiful concepts that started long ago, years ago, between India and Bangladesh, where it established a policy innovation in form of a regional cooperation, where we see that if a variety has been released in one country and similar agroecological situation prevails in other countries, or the market demand prevails in the other country, they will respect each other's seed law or the seed harmonization process or regulatory framework, and they will accept or be able to re-release that variety in their own country. So that created a very strong platform where we don't have to wait for years for someone to develop a specific variety if that variety is already developed by someone in the neighboring member countries of the innovation. So in this way, there are several innovative models that can be perpetuated in the policy catalyzation exercise that to make our seed system stronger. Why seed system matters? It is not just a simple input. It's for us, we consider as it is an engine of agrarian and rural transformation, because while we say it as an agri input, it is also a very holistic product. It is governed by so many market forces, demand, supply dynamics, regulatory affairs, and consumer preferences as well. So in this context, seed is also a product which provides a significant opportunity for enterprise development for the rural communities, and it can provide them an economic profitability, apart from making sure that they are able to enhance the productivity through climate resilient variety cultivations. They can reduce the risk or vulnerability from the climatic aspects. At the same time, as we are talking about going beyond food security and more talking around nutrition security, a seed, a good genetics can also be a source of healthier staple for us. Whether it is through micronutrient enrichment or protein enrichment or other kinds of nutritional value that might be embedded in a particular variety, that can also go as a healthier staple to our plates. So in this context, seed creates an opportunity which is very comprehensive and holistic. Talk about seed, how the seed system has evolved. If you look around different scripts and then books, you know that ages ago when human used to go for hunting, gathering. At those times, it was the women of house who used to stay back and conserve the seeds and used to create that genetic repository at a local level. So somehow, through tradition, through the culture, women are also skilled in seed selection, preservations, cleaning, and a lot of seed system activities where we can ensure inclusivity, equity through various economic opportunity. First, women farmers can have access to a most critical technology in agriculture and a foundational stone for the entire agri value chain. But at the same time, through seed enterprise development, they can also unleash various economic opportunities available across this. When we specifically talk about smallholder, for them seed system becomes more and more critical, because they hold a large chunk of share of agricultural land and contribute to our daily calorie requirement and the food supply chain. But when it comes to their access to inputs, there are a lot of evidence to establish that that is an area of challenge where we should start working together. If we talk about a lot of different diverse types of seed institutions, be it public institutions, private institutions, often their distribution and supply network or delivery networks are well established in the regions which have infrastructure access, which are more developed. But when we go to those pockets where smallholders remain, and when we say that 40% or 50% of our seed system is actually unorganized or informal seed system for many crops. Then in those informal systems, we find these smallholder farms, or the households residing and looking for opportunities and opportunity for access to a critical input and also other economic opportunities over here. So in the smallholder context, the seed system becomes again an irreplaceable agenda of development if we talk about agriculture. And in these pockets, historically, there lies a significant glaring yield gap, which in turns affect the food and nutrition security, but also, as I said, the economic opportunities as well. So the constraints could be many, multifaceted. It could be climatic, it could be environmental degradation, it could be a very weak linkage between the innovation, upstream innovation and the extension system, where technologies are not reaching in a timely manner, or they are not being accessible or affordable to the farmers. At the same time, different market volatilities and not having enough risk management mechanisms among the rural households is one of the reasons also why these challenges persist. And this may reflect in form of immediately as a productivity loss, and at the same time enhancing the risks around the production, making them more vulnerable to the market fluctuation, but as well as environmental fluctuations, and creating a perpetuated food and nutrition insecurity and poverty nexus, as well as creating a scenario where the weaker technology adoption is persisting for long. So while we are talking about agriculture and then the smallholders, their challenges and different causes and effects of this, seed system remains as one of the major way for transformation. It can we keep on saying that this is a major gateway of impact. So when we talk about it, maybe better varieties are existing because our genetic research has advanced over the years. A lot of breeding programs raised to many improved varieties, which is sold these days. But existence or availability of variety does not guarantee it is being accessible to the smallholders. And once access is constrained, a sustained adoption is a question mark for us. There comes the role of extension, where we can make sure that our technology, and particularly in this case, equality seeds and improved varieties, are also getting adopted in a sustained manner. When we talk from a global perspective, and these are all common, some of these remain in along with the smallholders, but this is also a overall broader bottlenecks that is scattered across different countries and different regions, be it Asia or Eastern and Southern Africa, and many countries, specifically the countries of Global South. So in this, one of the challenges that early generation seed. So sometimes varieties gets released and notified, but the breeder seeds or the early generation seeds doesn't get available for the multipliers as immediately as possible. There is always a time lag. There is a very lack of proactive positioning of many of these innovations. Always it's not the fact that good varieties doesn't exist, they exist, but it may not be able to reach in timely manner, and by the time it is reaching, it may become older, and that time we must be talking about, oh, this variety is quite old, maybe we want a improved versions. So in this context, let us talk about seed system or any kind of agriculture innovations. There are always public system, there are also private sector institutions, but there remains a lot of gap around public-private partnership because no system is perfect, and they need a convergence point where they can work together to make sure they're reaching to the millions of smallholders. At the same time, as I was giving example, if we delay access to a newer varieties by many years through bottlenecks like early generation seed being not available or awareness not being there, or whatever the other reason, it creates a slow pace uptake the varieties get older, the effectiveness is not realized, nor the potential economic or the value proposition of those technology is realized. So how we can make sure that our varietal turnover, especially for improved varieties, are better. And then, as we keep on saying, who is going to take care of the last mile delivery? Private sectors may have very good, strong distribution systems, but their product base may be very limited. They might focus on commercial crops. They might not focus on staple food grain crops, or they might not just focus on interior regions where, the delivery system or the required infrastructure or information system is not available, because that might increase the cost of delivery for them. But at the same time, even if public system is there, how efficiently they are delivering that in a timely manner, and also the products of choice by the farmers, that is also something which we need to look into. So those delivery mechanisms, are they operating correctly? Probably not. And at the same time, when we talk about any innovations in agriculture reaching to the smallholders, we can never forget women and youth in the context of rural development and agrarian transformation. So they are a major stakeholders, and the solutions for them or the opportunities for them has to be looked in from a very different perspective. And that also needs to make sure that, starting from designing of any kind of technological innovation to design of delivery mechanism, those processes, are they enough inclusive of women and youth needs? That's something which probably we also need to make sure. And another aspect is that often when 30 to 40% seed system is informal, when we talk about, the major challenges of that is that lack of assurance around seed quality, not being bound by any regulatory framework, not aware about different knowledge and practices around quality seed production, maintenance, storage, drying, and reuse. Often, the productivity potential of a good genetics or variety gets reduced, and also they become susceptible to different biotic and abiotic stresses over the period of time. Now, seed creates a lot of enterprise opportunities. Now, if we have seed enterprise and we want to make it viable, it is very important those enterprises take the best possible product into their business module, or they take the best marketing or positioning strategy, and they are aware about the demand or the pull factor which is existing. So as I was giving an example, can a farmer grow what he or she likes? The answer is probably no. If he grows what he or she likes and the miller says, no, this is not something which we are going not to lift from you, then we know that the highest risk lies on the soldiers of the farm households. At this point of time, it is very important to realize that if we look for some kind of rural enterprise and agriculture remaining a core piece of attention within the rural marketing setup, in this context, it is important that the innovations are demand driven, and we are catering to, and they are equipped with enough tools or mechanism to have the market intelligence to make sure that they are targeting the right segment, right market with the right product. And when I say product in seed case, it is a variety. It is this in form of seed. It is being sold to the the consumers who are here, your farmers. At the same time, another very, very important fact is that as the climate change vulnerability remain very high in many pockets, be it look at our South Asia context, look at our Asia Pacific context, and we see that a lot of pockets are affected by submergence or flooding, consistent drought, and even in one particular season, you can see both flooding and drought, or multi-phased drought, what we call about. Like, you can see at the crop emergence phase, you can see at the vegetative phase, or at the terminal drought as well, and the salinity. So how we are designing our innovation systems in future, that where we have varietal solutions designed to mitigate these climatic risks, is also very critical, and there also remains a lot of opportunity as well as gap. So when Ajay was talking earlier, the seed is one of the most low-cost standalone technology in agriculture innovation, but the contribution it made to the whole piece or the whole pie of the productivity is immense, and therefore for smallholders it would remain a critical subject where we can create a lot of opportunity for transformation. Over the period of time, in many society or mini ecosystem, we are talking more and more about inclusive seed system. It is learned through evidences that it may not be possible rapidly or ever, like only one particular kind of institutions, say public or only private institutions, could cater to the needs and demands. When we know that 50% seed system in unorganized, then we see those 50% as market potential and opportunities where we can bring in more and more seed institutions or seed enterprises on board. And those seed enterprises did not be only a pure public institutions, as like our seed corporations or government run entities, or the private companies, as we talk about different seed companies, etc. They can be also organizations which is driven by the community, farmer groups, and emerging from the grassroots level, but evolving into a fully flourished enterprise, coexisting with bigger institutions, bigger public or private sector institutions as well. There is a need of coexistence of different actors and institutions within the seed system, because the diversity, the requirement are very the requirements are very, very different, and not one kind of institutions can cater to. And the way each of these institutional setups are made, they are governed in it through very different theories or ways of operations, I would say that. So hence everyone have their own strengths and weaknesses, and to make sure that we are not missing out an approach which is not inclusive, it is important to foster many alternative seed institutions who can coexist with mainstream seed institutions. Some of the operational models, what we try to follow is, one part is like we do an extensive varietal evaluations where we particularly involve extension system organizations. If I say, give an example of, say, India. So India have a very wide-scale reach of KBK systems, which we call farm science centers or Krishi Vigyan Kendras. So they are having presence almost every district in the entire country. Now, they might have reached to a lot of farmer network. Not that KBKs are doing themselves, but the farmers are doing themselves the evaluation of the varieties which is being developed or pushed to them. Let them decide in their context, because when we release a variety, always there is a document or the product brochure which writes about the yield potential, say 7 tons per hectare, 6 tons per hectare. Trust me, when we take each of these varieties to a smallholder ecosystem, those variations in the rain-fed ecosystem are very wide. Our on-farm trials established that in rain-fed system, the variation is too big, and the yield potential, which is always mentioned for a particular variety, is realized far well below than what is mentioned as ideal or expected or optimal. Hence, it is very important that we contextualize in the farmer context and make our decisions data driven. And when we have a data driven decision making point, okay, so this is a segment, suppose this is a rice segment which requires varieties which are maturing early, like within say 100 to 120 days. They must have a grain type which is long slender. They must be able to be grown in the rain-fed ecosystem. So now it becomes one of the market segment. And here we have 7-8 varieties getting tested by the farmers in under non-optimal conditions, under exactly farmer managed conditions, by the extension actors, not by the breeders, not by those scientists who develop those, because we also want to remove the biases over there. So when this data arrives, we know that what is going to be the best performing varieties under the farmer conditions. And then again comes the delivery agents and extension systems role to demonstrate those, create awareness and position those into our production system, or attract the farmers' attention, but also other value chain actors like dealers, millers. They also noting down the potential of a new product which is getting introduced. Once the demand is created, at the same time in parallel we need to make sure a supply chain for a new product is established. One of the challenges seed supply chain is that as the time lag from the registration of a new variety or release to the development of complete marketing plan and distribution plan and inventory management of how much we will be producing for selling in yearly manner or seasonal manner. That misses out often in the public sector, but also in the so many small enterprises in the seed system. While these could be very profound in evolved seed companies which have their own R&D, which have their significant money on marketing, branding, positioning, or the volume-led business. But this may not be true for all kinds of institutions or enterprises. Hence, it is important that we are making sure that we have a plan for that as well. So here are some of the photographs which you can see that through the on-farm trial, engaging the extension system actors, we are trying to evaluate scientifically, but also through visual learnings, contextual learnings in the farmer field, that what is working, what is needed for the farmers. In the participatory way of evaluation and selection, we are ensuring that we are involving not only just farmers, but other decisive actors in the entire seed value chain as well. Also among farmers, we must ensure there are women and there are men, and we need to know their preferences, the trait preferences. What women want versus what men want could be very distinct. So among the visible traits which is under display for many varieties under a cafeteria, they can say that what they like, but it doesn't end with those visual characteristics or visual scanning. It also starts with sensory. It also takes it to next level, like sensory evaluation, cooking quality evaluations, as well as evaluations by the millers to understand their preferences. So every actor in the seed value chain would have a very different lens of preferences. So they can score on the basis of what they like. And then when multiple diverse stakeholders comes, we know where our average preferences is heading towards. And that would lead to an inclusive decision of what will work for a particular locality and what not. In this manner, we ensure that our delivery programs or our varietal extension or seed extension approaches are inclusive, inclusive of gender, inclusive of value chain actors. training and capacity building is something which is paramount to make our enterprises sustainable, to make our seed growers, so the smallholders, empowered enough. So hence quality seed production is one of the pillar, but that includes many detailed nuances that which I will be explaining in upcoming slides. So when we work with smallholders around entrepreneurship development, when we look at seed enterprise as such, we all understand that there are public seed corporations, there are private seed companies, but as an alternative way, we are looking towards that organizing our informal seed system actors into a more semi-formal or formal setup where they are bringing the practices and skills around quality seed production, but also are pretty much aware and skilled around various regulatory affairs while running a enterprise. But also they are having enough mechanism to know the demand and cater to the demand of the market. So not just the technical skills, but also the business skills. Those are the things which needs to be embedded into our alternative institutions. But while we do those alternative institutions for seed enterprise development, led mostly by the farmers, many by women farmers or mixed groups as well, they can up a standalone enterprise, starting everything from scratch and going to their own branding, packaging, and selling, or having seed processing infrastructure, a full place setup. But they can also act as a feeder model to different setups where they can partner through contracts and agreements with public institutions or private institutions which are bigger in nature and can operate in a partnership model before they become more confident that they can run a seed business, which has its own nuances and risk factors as well. So there are different alternative models that we keep on trying, engaging our community institutions. We have a very strong, extensive seed innovations in Bangladesh, especially around rice seed system and enterprise development. And I particularly wanted to give this example because we have so many success around community enterprise development around seed, particularly in Bangladesh. And if anyone would be interested ever to visit some of our intervention sites, including SEEDAP and others who are interested, we will be most happy to facilitate those learning visits to our women groups with whom we have been working and how we are I will not go into much detail because we spoke about the global challenges, and Bangladesh is part of that Global South network, where we also see some of the very, very similar problems, challenges around climate, slow varietal replacement, and access to quality seed, etc. We have already covered it that the formal, semi-formal, and the farmer managed system. So formal, we say that which is bound by regulations, which is bound by certification and labeling standards, and farm managed or informal is completely unorganized, and semi-formal where they are not necessarily into certified seed production, but they are producing labeled seeds, which is quality assured, and the community institutions are getting organized into a seed enterprise model. So so this is something at the three pillars of the seed system, and with whom we need to work very closely to make sure. And when it comes to our community-led seed network models or the enterprise development as such, those can be led by women, those can be led by men, or both of them together coming forward. But what our goal is that often when we bring in a lot of community institutions to different income generating activities, when we talk about seed or an agriculture technology, we always target a low-hanging fruit of providing skills and trainings around, say, quality seed production and extremely scientific methodologies and all those kind of things. But they need the trainings beyond that as well. They need trainings around, regulatory affairs, how to do the processing, certification, registrations. At the same time, early generation seed linkage is very critical for new products because they have to also secure enough breeder seed to be able to multiply into certified seed or the truthfully labeled seeds. So where do they get? Who is going to provide them in a consistent manner? Often that links are missing because the research institutions who develop those breeder seed often carries the monopoly. The breeder can only produce the breeder seed, it's not something that should be commercially produced. So to acquire that breeder seed from those institutions, even the larger commercial actors or the institutions are pretty aware, but small enterprises or institutions, they lack those linkages, they lack those negotiation powers, they lack those information also, like where it sits. Often we say that breeder seed is something like a gold standard in agriculture, but then where will they get those goals in order to make their livelihood sustainable? So how do they multiply? So those information is also part of market intelligence framework where they are linked to the EGS, and at the same time enough training around business development, market supports, and price discovery, as well as planning their entire inventory and supply chain management as well, becomes the part of the holistic capacity building or skill development around seed system or seed enterprises. And especially in Bangladesh, as you can see, several varieties of the products were part of these efforts, and several thousands of women seed growers were organized across different community institutions of the groups in different names and forms, and they were a major steering force in infusing quality seeds in tons and quintals to the system, and that in turn can increase the farm productivity, ensure the access to critical input, as well as those host enterprises generating revenues from those seed enterprises. When we talk about community-led enterprises in the rural context, they require training, skill developments. Often, if you go to a typical agriculture training programs and extension programs, which might happen through any flagship programs or schemes, you just have to take a register of participants and you will see the names of participants are mostly men. Women lose out often those opportunities because our land holding or the ownership pattern in a way in our society is so that if, when it comes to a farmer or defined as a farmer or through a legal foundation, it's mostly the name of a man. So, but practically, women are involved very strongly in household farming operations from the time of seed selection, preservation, to nursery, to transplanting, to and the harvesting, post-harvest activities, and etc. Especially if I talk about a staple crop of rice, you go to any farmland, you cannot ignore the role women play. But when we design our training modules or capacity building programs, often those miss out those lenses. How do we contextualize? How do we make sure our women are relating to it? Often, many women smallholders or the women of smallholder households are not very highly educated. For them, having a overtly technological jargon driven training materials or books or bulletins may be of no use, and a trainer or an extension trainer might go and train for a day, but they might need a season long hand holding. So hence we thought of that, why not we devise technical materials or the training modules which are gender friendly and inclusive, and which are more pictorial, telling them the steps through visual means rather than making it too text heavy. So those small tricks helped us to reach to more and more women, attracting more and more women, and empowering more and more women, understanding what we are trying to give a message. What are the steps of quality seed production? Okay, step 1, you do this X, you do this, how to do the rogging, how you will identify the off types, how to maintain the row distance, how you will do the cleaning, when it's the right time to dry, and how it should look like. All those things were visually depicted in those training manuals, and hanging or putting it somewhere in the in their home, they can always reflect back, and not always a trainer would be needed to help them recall that what they needs to do as a next step. So these small yet critical innovations play a significant role in creating change, which we're talking about. These are some of the volumes. I'm not going into detail, but these images are from field. These images are from the women farmers who are proudly holding the seed packages, designed by them, being sold to different dealer networks and etc. And our team played a critical role, as I was talking about, not only giving them scientific trainings around quality seed production, but also providing them, going beyond that. Having said that, rural enterprise development through seed system is not it is easier said than done. It requires a comprehensive handholding and support. There lies a lot of opportunity and strength in it, but also there are some of the challenges which we need to address if we want to replicate these models or scale these models to coexist along with mainstream seed system institutions and business models. So some of those needs, like to match up to the existing business scale deficit. Often our training programs, as I say, quality seed production, you will hear the steps of quality seed production, but that will not go beyond agronomic steps. That never reaches to market, regulatory, or business aspects. So how we make sure that our trainings are always talking about value chain, our trainings are always talking about market dynamic intelligence and how to do the business. So those need to be a cultural change in a way how we design our curriculum, even our agriculture curriculum across different setups. At the same time, being a small, their corpus may be low, they may not have an aggressive promotion and marketing setup. So how they can be supported through various mechanisms or public flagship programs to help them, giving some kinds of support. For example, if a government program, a government extension program has a budget provisioning of, say, seed procurement, we can always make sure that, say, this many percentage of seed procurement would only happen from the FPOs maintained by, say, rural community or the farmer producer organizations or women organizations or these kind of enterprises, rather than large scale companies or corporations. Some kind of buyback assurance, but some kind of also very rigorous training and intensive engagement around this would be important when we talk about sustaining some of these institutions, because we know seed plays in a very competitive market. So for a sustainable women or youth-led seed systems, our outcomes and scales should be measurable. Our designs to be so tailored that we are, we are mapping the capacity and we are scale and the networks very well. And prior, we are embedding production as well as the marketing aspects in our capacity development programs, and making sure that this is a holistic approach to make sure women and youth are the lead actors, in our system programs. But, holistically, seed is just not one opportunity. There remains a lot of opportunity in form of agriculture, whether it is creating value-added product from healthier rice, millets, and other crops, or whether it is producing, service provisioning models to farm mechanization centers, creating agri advisory or service provisioning systems, and providing financial linkages or the credit access or credit linkages to these enterprises. So there remains different dimensions which can make sure these enterprises are flourishing and sustaining in a long run. So these were some of my reflections or insights from what we are doing, focusing on seed system aspect, unleashing the opportunity or for the rural community through various seed enterprise as well as the value chain opportunities. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Swati, for wonderful presentation. There are some questions in the chat box. We can just try to answer them.
Yeah, there are so many, Mr. Ahmed, and I am completely into a lot of indigenous and traditional seeds, and especially working in a rice research institutions. Many of my personally investigated research programs is even around these things. And what our research finds is that a lot of these indigenous varieties and traditional varieties carry some of the amazing, I would say that nutraceutical properties, very unique aroma, and medicinal properties, and sometimes very amazing stress resilience capacities as well. But often those perish due to various reasons. First thing is lack of evidence, documented evidence, scientifically validated evidence to establish that what works for what reason and what is the USP which can be unleashed from these things. The second is the massive yield trade-off, because these varieties are often low yielders. When the race is around yield, when farmers are looking for higher yielding varieties, and because that is directly connected to the farm gate price realization in some countries like in India, like the MSPs and other things from the production side as well, and all those things. So the yield is one of the driving forces where they also have a strong trade-off in that. But there lies a lot of opportunity in this traditional rice if we can characterize and identify the right accession, because every traditional variety would have thousands of accession. But which is that particular accession which is preserving the most crucial or value added trait needs to be identified, and that needs to be marketed and positioned in order to revive those. This is one of the way where we can try to put up it as a premium quality right position and create a trade opportunity for those niche farmers. And particularly if we take out those traditional varieties from that particular belt and grow somewhere, they lose all the traits. So hence that needs to be also very niche area focused strategy, that how we maintain the production clusters, how we design our marketing strategy as high value products, so that the losses from the yield is traded off through higher pricing or higher positioning. In order to do that, we need to tap onto the consumer psychology and willingness to pay, that what they are trying to pay. If they are looking for aroma or particular variety, or they are looking for some nutritional healthier traits of those varieties, so those profiling needs to be done carefully. But the other way is that also embedding crop improvement programs into some of these varieties while not losing the traits of those varieties. Sometimes when we do crop improvement, improved accession, improved variety of traditional rice, we lose the original traditional trait. So how we can make our science so pro in this area that we also maintain the traits, but at the same time we give a yield advantage so that it sustain the competition from other products that is coming. So it's never it's never 50-50. Sometimes we have to weigh in this and that. I hope that answers. I have another question which I can see that. So I think we have a lot of gold standard traditional land races and germplasms in different pockets and the regions. And one of the way is that how we organize our community, but we also bring the value and the skill set to reposition it that this is the value-added product. Now I will talk about millet. What happened to millet in last few years? We saw a boom for millet, the bourgeois. And if you ask me as a personally, as a mother, as a person who has become a health conscious consumer, you will see a lot of millet products lying in my shelf, and a lot of shifting has been happening in the consumer preferences to healthier staple and etc. So some of these germplasms can be repositioned as that. Some of them have amazing nutraceutical properties, as I was talking about. How we position and rebrand them, it matters. People buy if they see the value, and probably many consumers are willing to pay. If we need to create that trade linkage, that brand positioning, reviving strategy, not focusing on just in situ conservation of seeds and purification and etc., but also the market aspect of it, then probably we have a lot of hope. We see a revival of many crops, many varieties, and repositioning, how those are directly getting exported, but how we reduce intermediaries even in that channel and create that final market linkage to our growers is something which we need to work around. So if you ask me, there are countries in developed world which for every crop probably they would have when there is more hybrid and other things, seed replacement. When hybrid comes, seed replacement rate comes as 100%. You cannot grow hybrid and etc. But if you are talking about particularly inbred, I think that the entire Asia region, if I talk about it, is that on an average for each country, if I see, it lies between 30 to 40%. But there are variations in different zones within a particular country. If I talk about India, or if I talk about Bangladesh, probably the northern part or the southern part, the variation would be very different. If I go to Western Gangetic Plain area, I would find seed replacement as high as going to 70%. But as soon as I come to the eastern part where the smallholders lies, is 30%, even less than that. So sometimes, and then people look at an average, say, okay, we are doing okay, but then there are so much of variation within the country. It's on an average, every country would probably, for rice, I'm saying that it will lie between 30 to 40, but there are very low SRR areas and there are very high SRR areas. So that is on something. And a number of biofortified varieties, how much is their seed demand? And okay, biofortified varieties, particularly I talk about zinc biofortification in Bangladesh. It's doing really good, and the country has been able to position, thanks to the delivery system, thanks to the linkages between the breeding and extension network. You can say it as a silent revolution. Sometimes people doesn't have to know that they are eating what healthier varieties, but some good zinc varieties have been developed by Biri, Bina, and some of them have ERI lines also. We have said some of the germplasms for the national interest and research, and that is doing well. But if I talk about India, the market share of biofortified rice is very low, very low. It varies between 1.5 to 2%. That is something is yet to be positioned well. Hence, I keep on advocating about the deployment strategy for biofortified varieties, because probably we have some good amount of products, but we need more. For long we started talking about zinc, but we are now talking about we need iron. We also talking about protein-rich rice. So the demands and the diverse requirements are increasing. Research are happening, but it would take some time, by which it takes up the market share to a respectable share. Yeah, so the local label, how to preserve. The first and foremost part of in situ conservation for indigenous rice starts with having a pure seed and pure accession. Many a times, because it is through they have thousands, each variety would have thousands of accessions. And basically, if you see from science perspective, it's a kind of an adult edition. So screening those accessions initially characterized and preserving only the best accessions, and purification of the seeds, pure line, and how to maintain seed and storage and recirculation of seeds are important aspects of how to conserve. But at the same time, we are also these days have mechanisms to mainstream the germplasms in terms of special release committees and etc., and mainstreaming it is in the seed chain as well. So right, I see a photograph sometimes, how we see. I'm sharing my personal perspective. There may be many, and how you see the empowerment from different lens needs to be seen. That women running a power tiller or a women running a tractor may sound and may look like an image of which is quite empowering, but we want to reflect that what led to that women to do that. It was only of interest, or whether it was a compulsion, or what was it? Whether that tractor, whether that power tiller which she is running is really designed to, the horsepower, the power of the machine is really designed in a gender-friendly manner. Is it taking a toll on her health rather? While we are seeing that, that woman is actually capable, are we really drawing a line of empowerment over there? Like, if that woman is running a service center in terms of, like, say, custom hiring center, owning those machines and providing those machines to people to hire, that could be also an empowering story for it. So what we really need to segregate, that where lies the opportunity and choices for women to unleash the farming sector potentials, and the farming value chain. If I open it up, it has so much of opportunity in the production system, in the post-production systems as well as. So there lies the nuances, where lies the maximum value and choice. Not every women would be looking forward to, say, something which is towards market related, or it all depends upon in the cultural context and how they are being trained and etc. So mapping those interests and choices and feasibilities are very important. But at the same time, as I was saying, if they want to start anything enterprising on their label, access to credit is definitely an important aspect. And no doubt different financial options and tools are available through government schemes, policies, banks, MFIs, and all those things. Maybe one may not be perfect, but we also have to find out what makes the better fit depending upon the nature of the business. If it is a seed business, a full-fledged business, probably the corpus requirement will be high if they want to set up the processing unit or by themselves and etc. But the corpus requirement may be very low if they want to go for a feeder model to already existing seed processing unit, which is owned by maybe a bigger farm, but they want to do a partial use by leasing arrangement or want to supply to them. So how the business would look like, that would depend upon also the what kind of financial tool they should be availing, or the source they should be availing. But I know that there are various not just financial tool should not be only limited to credit, but also the risk assessment tools and all those kind of tool mechanisms and the calculations should also be embedded into it, and also the aspects of price discovery, the aspects of subsidy incentives, and a lot of those informations, if we can really package into a beautiful tool. While I'm speaking, thanks for this question. It gives so much of ideas to be unleashed, and I hope some of the social science researchers are already working on it. I would like to learn, but it gives a lot of fueling thought to my mind also. So thanks for the question.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I think all of them, all the questions actually has been covered. Thank you so much for all joining us. And now I would like to request our Honorable Director General, Dr. P. Chandrasekhara sir, for giving his remark, sir, concluding remarks, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Swati. It was a wonderful presentation. Really enjoyed, every bit of it. Very useful information coming out of your experience. And it is not just, theoretical accumulated knowledge, but also practicable tools were also discussed. And that is really motivating. See, one thing is, very important. Nowadays, releasing a good number of varieties has become the pride of the breeder. So what happens to the consumer, farmer, producer? Is it still a pride for them? Is an issue. I think it is a professionally a sensitive question, which I think we all have to together deliberate when public money is involved. Second thing,
Yeah.
uh, in a seed system approach, uh, I see a divergent, approaches between public system and private system. Public system, we invest lot of money, lot of manpower, good number of scientists, institutions, universities. They are involved. They release a good number of varieties. For example, more than a lakh varieties of rice varieties are released across the globe. But how many are reaching farmers is an issue, especially the varieties which are coming from public system, because it involves the taxpayers' money. So, on the other hand, very concentrated approach, very aggressive marketing is involved. Whatever the varieties released by the private sector, the very next season they are in the hands of farmers. So, is it possible to link up, these two, public and private, liberalize public policies? Because ultimately reaching the benefits to the hands of the farmer is our interest.
Yeah.
If the public system is not, involving
Yeah.
in aggressive marketing,
Yeah.
and why can't we use the private channel so that
Yeah.
we can reach? But we can
Yeah.
always put the ceiling to the cost of selling. It saves a lot of money to the farmers. I think there is a lot of scope for that. It also creates a win-win situation.
Yeah.
Third system is, the scientist. Again, I'm coming back to that. The origin of, evolving a new variety. Always a particular, very specific aspect is addressed by the scientist. It is not an integrated approach. Uh, you know, it is not considering the expectations of all the stakeholders, including the consumers. For example, a pathologist, he focus on neutralizing a particular disease, nothing more than that actually. But so that is how, number of varieties are more, but the utility at the level of farmers probably is not as much as expected. So this is another thing, which we have to. And when we talk about, participatory seed system management, uh, I think we should take full advantage of the emergence of very vibrant FPOs as well as cooperatives, farmers cooperatives, and good number. Government is giving a good support in almost all the countries, and blending these cooperatives and farmers producers organizations with some of the out of the box solutions which are coming from startups, entrepreneurs. They're not from the public system or private system. It is other than that. I think we can make, the systems more vibrant, so that ultimately farmers will get benefited. They take more space in the value system and try to replace other players so that the maximum benefit goes to the hands of the farmers. These are all few things, but seed is becoming more commercial nowadays. Very important, input rather than one which is part of the life. I remember in my childhood, in my backyard, nearly 1 acre backyard, around 15 crops were grown. People used to come to my home to take out the varieties. We never purchased vegetables, but we ate different vegetables every day throughout the year. That kind of, the system was there, self-supporting. Very difficult to imagine where the land is shrinking, farmers are shrinking, numbers are shrinking. We need, the commercial, very aggressive support systems like public and private sector. But there should be a balance, and that leads to sustainability. Otherwise, we face this question for all the future days to come. Wonderful, thought-provoking presentation. Thank you very much. Just a point. In
Yes,
fact,
sir.
SIDA being a regional organization, it also attracted my attention. That is seeds without boundaries, without borders. The
Yeah,
cooperative, agreement
yeah,
between
yeah.
India and Bangladesh. Probably
And
I
now
would
we
request,
have 9 countries, sir. Yeah.
yeah, I would request you, suppose if you share, half a
Yeah.
page or 1 page,
Yes.
probably that would help us to, take it to that
Yeah.
next level of extension.
Absolutely. We would love to do that with you, sir. And as you have many other member countries part of your network, and we have so far now 9 to 10 member countries, we can definitely look for others who can come on board. Yeah. Thank you very much. And also, like, we have just started unleashing potential of some products being extended. Rice is more predominantly, but there are maybe other crops, and if SIDAP can work with IRI and we can look around what are the opportunities by and strengthen different bilateral exchanges, that would be a great contributions. Thank you.
Let us work for that.
Thank you so much for highlighting this
Sir,
important.
thank you all
Thank you.
for joining with us. Have a wonderful day ahead.